Good afternoon everyone. I'm here to represent my group, the 23, to do this presentation. The country that chosen by our group is Denmark. Denmark, one of the 5 Nordic countries, is known as the Kingdom of Denmark. It is a constitutional monarchy with the Faroe Islands and Greenland as self-governing regions. It is also bordered in the north by Sweden and Norway across the North Sea and the Baltic Sea, and in the south by Germany, which form the Scandinavian nations. Other than that, as we know that Denmark is a constitutional monarchy, it has a representative parliamentary system, and while the Queen Margaret II is the head of the states, since January 1972, the head of the government is the Prime Ministers, who preside over the cabinet. Denmark's parliament has a single chamber called Folketing, which is the highest and final legislative body in the country and consists of 179 elected members. From our research, we found that Denmark's total surface area is 43,096 kilometers. The climate of Denmark is temperate maritime with warm and windy conditions throughout the year. This is due to its location in the temperate zone at the intersection of different air masses from Atlantic, Arctic, and Eastern Europe. The Danish coastline is 7,314 kilometers long and shares a 68 km border with Germany. The capital and major city of Denmark is Copenhagen. Located mainly on the island of Zealand, while Aarhus is the second largest city, is the primary town center of Jutland.
In 2021, the annual GDP number for Denmark is $395,710 million, with a GDP growth of 4.7%. For Malaysia, its GDP was $372,754 million, representing a 3.1% rise compared to last year. In terms of GDP per capita, it showed $67,000 for Denmark, with a 10.8% annual growth. And for Malaysia, the GDP per capita stands at $11,000, expanded by 10.5%. The population of Malaysia is larger than Denmark, with 32.8 million in Malaysia and Denmark at 5.85 million. The number of births is 63,000 for Denmark and 551,000 live births in Malaysia. In Denmark, the female population surpassed the male population at 2.94 million and 2.91 million respectively. However, in Malaysia, the male population surpassed the female population at 16.8 million and 15.9 million respectively. The primary focus of the Denmark economy is on service, trade, and manufacturing. However, the main economic activity of Malaysia include manufacturing, service, and agriculture.
Here we move to the industrial relations system. On the Danish labour market, there is typically contract flexibility. Individuals' contract and collective bargaining agreements, rather than status, often determine pay and working conditions. However, there are a lot of laws in the system that safeguard workers. Certain laws apply to all workers, while others restrict their application to salaried employees. Also, in Denmark, all employees in Denmark have the right to join an association, for example, a trade union. The Act on the Freedom of Association in the Danish labour market protects workers with freedom of association by prohibiting an employer from demanding that a worker is or is not a member of a trade union. There are 4 kinds of examples of work permission in Denmark. The first one will be the positive list. The positive list is the list of occupations in which Denmark presently has a skills shortage. Engineers, physicians, and medical consultants are examples. The second one will be the pay limit plan, which is intended for persons with yearly earning above a certain level. Individuals participating in this plan must achieve this yearly income criteria, which includes unpaid vacations. The third one will be the fast track scheme. This is before there are certain companies recognized by the Danish Agency for Labour Market and Recruitment may be eligible for the fast track system, which allows them to hire highly trained overseas staff. The last one will be the employment for a short-term stay. It is kind of fast track plan permit, which for foreign people to work in Denmark for up to 3 months without specific job restrictions, and the application process is on the right of the slide. And the terms and conditions of employment in Malaysia is every work lasting more than 1 month in Malaysia needs a written contract. Important aspects for the working relationship must be included in the contract, such as scope of work, working circumstance, work rest, work period, employment benefits, holidays, annuals, and sick leave.
In Denmark, 67% of the workforce belonging to the union, while in Malaysia, the Trade Unions Act protects workers from being victimized. The Industrial Relations Act allows employers to prohibit management, executive, and those who work in the confidential or security capacity from joining a union. Next, the major basis of worker representation in Denmark is trade unions. It communicates with the employer on a daily basis and is given authority to bargain locally on wages, working hours, and other concerns. While in Malaysia, Malaysian Employers Federation is the central organization of private sector employers in Malaysia. It promotes and safeguards the rights and interests of employers. In Denmark, collective bargaining gives employers privileges and union legitimacy to represent worker interests. It also laid the foundation for voluntarism, which remains the main principle of labour market regulation in Denmark. However, in Malaysia, collective bargainers are at liberty to bargain at any level of bargaining that suits them. Dispute settlement in Denmark includes negotiation between employer and employee, mediation by social partners in industrial arbitration court or Danish labour court. On the other hand, the labour court in Malaysia was established to hear any dispute or claims relating to the Employer Act 1955 and persons whose basic salary does not exceed 5,000 per month. Besides, the Industrial Court is solving the issue related with the Industrial Relations Act of 1967. ADR methods such as arbitration and mediation also used in Malaysia.
From the research, we found that their strike action can only be carried out with the consent of organizations that manage strikes. Before a strike can be called, the worker side must give 2 notice, and the second notice must be submitted at least 7 days before the start of actions, and it concerns the actual start of the strike actions. The Industrial Relations Act of 1967 stipulates that in Malaysia, strike action will be notified to be employees in 42 days in advance. No strike is permitted within 21 days after the notification date. Moreover, no strike may be conducted until the date specified has expired. From the slide, we can see that this is the number of total labor force in 2021. In Denmark, there is 3,043,847 people still working in different industries, while in Malaysia was having the larger number of labor force compared to Denmark, which is 60,177,000 and 80% of labor force. Here we move to the present foreign workers in the country. From our research, we found that there are 266 people or 10.5% work full-time in Denmark, while 1.1 million foreign workers in Malaysia. The official number of the Russian foreign workers in Denmark stood at 9%. From the top 10 of countries of Germany, Sweden, Lithuania, UK, Turkey, Ukraine, Norway, and India. While there was only 7% in Malaysia, the foreign workers come from Indonesia, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Philippines. For the rules and regulations from the both foreign and domestic workers, there are no fixed rules when they want to work as long as they have at least 1 day rest in every week. And there is an active labour market policy that collaborates with trade unions, training providers, and non-government organizations to focus on employment and workforce development issues. In Denmark, also heavy determinants of the employment such as age, marital status, education level, household labor force, and total government grants. Therefore, from the data in 2021 indicates 2.22% people work in agriculture, 18.55% in industry and 79.23% in the service sectors. In Malaysia, Malaysia's constitution guarantees the right of all Malaysians to form and join a trade union. For examples, the Trade Unions Act of 1959 and the Industrial Relations Act of 1967. Besides, from the data in 2021 indicates 62.2% of people work in service sectors, 27% in industrial sectors, and 10.3% in agriculture. This is the process of every non-citizen people in Denmark must go through when they want to work. First of all, is the need to create a case order ID. This should involve the employee to submit the application according to the type of visa that corresponds to the desired job. After that, the visa must be paid in the same year as they create the case order ID. The majority of work visa in Denmark cost 3.25 Danish krone. The third step is need to submit the necessary documents consisting of payment receipts, photocopy of passport, autonomy forms, employment contract for the job applied for, and academic qualification to demonstrate the suitability of employment with a person. Next is fill out and submit the work visa application form, which has two parts that employees and employers need to fill in. Then here we come to the step number 5, which is after 14 days of application had submitted, the foreigner will have to get their biometric form done with submit the photo and fingerprint record. And the last process is to wait for response within 30 days depending on the type of visa applied for. Here we come to the process of requirement to apply visa and working permit in Malaysia. Before applying, the applicant must get a job offer letter from the sponsoring company. Next, fill out the application form online along with all the required documents. And the next steps is you need to pay the online fee. Once the application process is done, check the status of the application online. And the last part will be wait for your visa. From our research, we found that there are 3 government agencies in Denmark which handling the domestic and foreign workers. The first one is the Ministry of Employment, which build frameworks and regulation governing employment, safety and health in the workplace. In addition, Danish Working Environment Authority is a body that ensures that the laws that are set can be complied with, and the Danish Agency for Labour Market and Recruitment is responsible for implementing and monitoring employment policies, including the recruitment of foreign workers. In Malaysia, there is a government agency called Ministry of Human Resources and the Department of Occupational Safety and Health, which developing occupational safety and health at the workplace. For the payment of wages, there are no statutory minimum wages in Denmark. It depends on the discretion between the employees and employers according to the collective bargaining agreements. Besides the salary, employees are also entitled to bonus, pensions, and salaried employee status depending on the terms and conditions that have been set. While in Malaysia, Malaysian national monthly minimum wages has increased by 25% from 1,200 ringgit to 1,500 ringgit in 1st of May 2022.
Take discrimination issues seriously, especially in gender in terms of salary payment and welfare benefit. Female workers are given advantage where they can gain social advantage such as paid maternity leave and stability in employment depending on agreement in collective bargaining. For example, a mother who has just birth and her baby dies is entitled of 14 weeks of parental leave. However, if the mother is faced with a pregnancy-related illness, the mother is allowed to leave for 46 weeks after the birth of baby. Different in Malaysia, where the law that control and supervise the employment of women is Employment Act 1995. This law is to protect the salary paid by employer same as male worker, since the female worker are less than male worker. In Malaysia, also women is better off in the public sector because have a regulation to cover this gender compared to the public sector. Therefore, the action to ban female worker from working at night is not good solution, whereas it is better to establish a special law to keep women working on the night shift. In terms of salary and leave, female worker is eligible for full pay for 5 birth and 60 days of. Next Next is about the working hour and leave. Based on the agreement that has been achieved in Denmark, working hour is 37 hours in a week on average and 30 minutes of time for lunch break. For those who work overtime, there is no fixed law and rely only on collective bargaining. For the annual leave, employees are entitled to 2.08 days of paid vacation for every month worked. However, if workers are not forced to start their work on holiday if they fall ill before the start of their annual leave. Meanwhile, in Malaysia, have a higher working hour which is 48 hours per week. They need to work at least 8 hours per day and 1 day holiday in a week. For the annual leave, 14 days are eligible for the worker are employed less than 2 years, 18 days less between 2 to 5 years, and 22 days for the worker who are employed more than 5 years. Next is about the termination benefit. Each employee is entitled to 40% of total income after leaving the organization. This means lump sum payment include compensation for the employee regardless of whether the person is looking for work alternative employment. Different if in the Malaysia is based on the termination and layoff benefit regulation 1980. Employees have a right to get the termination benefit if they serve the company at least 12 months after leaving the company. Then we move to the issue about the employment of foreigners. STAR is the acronym for the Danish Agency for Labour Market and Recruitment. Is a body to execute and monitor the employment policy. Meanwhile, in Malaysia is monitored by Malaysian Immigration Department. For the levy payer in Denmark, both employee and employer type with levy payer. Employer need to deduct the employee income to be paid to the tax authority. Meanwhile, employer need to pay ATP contribution which is from the pension, insurance and other. In Malaysia, it depending on the place of work where in the peninsula of Malaysia is between 640 ringgit to 1,850 and in the Sabah Sarawak is around 410 ringgit to 1,490 ringgit. Next is the minimum retirement age and age. The retirement age in Denmark before is considered as too high which is 67 years old and the Danish Parliament amend the lower minimum age for retirement to 47 years old. Meanwhile, in Malaysia is 60 years old based on voluntary agreement if they want to work more. The Agency of Modernization of Public Administration is the body to manage pension from the all sector after the retirement in Denmark. In Denmark, there are special bodies to monitor the child labor issues such as Ministry of Children, Education and Gender Equality and 4 others as mentioned in this slide. Therefore, Constitution of Denmark 1953 and 4 other relevant acts are created to protect the involvement child in the labor market in Denmark. Different in Malaysia, there are no laws that restrict children from working because they think they want to help their parents and get an experience can help them in the future. Next is the policies related to the Social Security Law. There are 2 different groups to see whether they are eligible to receive the Social Security Law benefit in Denmark. First is the national Europe country like Iceland, Norway and Switzerland. This group is easier to get social benefit, meanwhile the national of non-Europe country are not covered by Active Social Policy Act in Denmark unless they meet specific requirements. Meanwhile, in Malaysia have employees Social Security Act 1969 or known as Perkeso. And the last part in this presentation is the other matter related to employment scenario, laws and the policies in Denmark. Our group lists only 4 matters related to the Denmark workplace environment. First is discrimination within workplace is covered by Differential Treatment Act which can protect employees being victim of discrimination. Second is about the employee data protection which is covered by the General Data Protection Regulation and the Danish Data Protection Act which is include the right to access, deletion and processing. That is about the both employee and the employer privacy. Employer have the right to monitor the use of company asset by its employee. And the last is about the how to get permanent resident in Denmark. If the foreigner want to stay in Denmark, they need to pass the screening twice a year and meet the requirement under the National Register of Persons. For the Malaysia, our group used the discrimination issue for the other related scenarios and acts. Federal Constitution is the main legislation to control discrimination in employment. Next is the Employee Data Protection, which is Malaysia Personal Data Protection Act was developed to protect individual personal data. That is both employee and employer privacy. This matter is also referred to the same law as the data protection employee because Malaysia does not have specific law related to this issue. And the last one is the eligibility of foreigner to get a permanent resident based on the Immigration Regulation 1963 and Federal Constitution. That's all from 23 Group. Thank you so much for your interest and attention.